When is the last time that you actually rested? Not crashed, not fell asleep out of pure exhaustion on the couch, but rested on purpose, without guilt, without running a mental list of everything that you should be doing instead. If you are having a hard time answering that, this episode is for you, because I think a lot of us know that we need to rest. We can feel it in our bodies, but whenever it comes time to actually try to stop, the guilt prevents us from doing that. And the other side of that is, if you are trying to rest, but you are just so ridden with guilt because of it, it doesn't necessarily restore you in the way that real rest does. Today, I'm going to give you something that might make it easier to actually let yourself rest. Not a routine, not a tip, just a reframe that I think is going to hit differently. So let's get into it.
Welcome to Chronic Illness Moms. If you're more than just a tired mom, I'm talking trying to make it through the day without crashing by noon while raising neurodivergent kids, you're not alone. I'm Ashley, a wife, mom, and certified health coach. I have lived with autoimmune disease and flare-ups that made everyday life feel harder than it should. After years of pushing through and burning out, I learned how much stress, poor sleep, and nervous system overload were driving my symptoms. Everything changed when I started building small, realistic habits that actually supported my body instead of fighting it. In this podcast, you'll learn simple habits that help you to feel better. So pop in your earbuds and take a break from the chaos. It's you time.
Let me tell you exactly what happens whenever you book a Feel Better coaching call with me. We get on a 1-hour video call, just the two of us, and I walk you through the Feel Better Framework Audit, which means we are going to be looking together at the daily habits that are either restoring or draining you. We identify your top 1 or 2 habit gaps, the things that are working against you the most. Then you get a prioritized action plan built around your actual schedule, your symptoms, and your capacity as a mom. So I will also write you an email summary after that for the whole plan after the call, and you get 2 follow-up check-ins with me so you are not left figuring out the next step on your own. If you want to see what that looks like for you, go to ashleybraden.com/coaching. That's ashleybraden.com/coaching. Okay, now let's talk about rest. I want to tell you about a day that I tried to rest on purpose. I had gotten to a place where I finally understood, intellectually anyway, that my body needed to rest. Not just sleep, but rest. So I made this plan, hot bath, favorite show, I was going to do this. Now, as I've shared before, so if you've been with me for a while, you know that I am a doer. I am task-oriented. I like to be moving. It is hard for me to sit still. And unless I was sick or in a flare, rest just didn't really happen in my everyday life. And I had to schedule rest almost like it was a task. So I decided I was going to do this time of rest, settled in, and here is what I remember about taking my bath. The guilt started almost right away. And not just like a little bit of guilt on the side, but just this nonstop running commentary. All the things that were not getting done, the way it felt kind of selfish to be soaking in a hot bath while my family was existing in another room. I should be doing something. This was a waste. Who has time for this? And I never really fully got to rest because my brain would just not let me. The shift for me came whenever I stopped thinking about rest as a reward that I had to earn, and instead started understanding it was something that my body actually required, just like food, like water. It's not this, oh, it's nice to have kind of thing. It is actually a need. And once I started to see it that way, the guilt had a lot less of a hold on me. So I want to talk a little bit about it. Because when your nervous system has been stuck in just this chronic stress mode, which, let's be real, for most of us, we are parenting multiple kids. A lot of times we might have 1 or 2 or many neurodivergent kids in that mix. And we also are dealing with our own chronic symptoms. So we likely are habitually stressed out. And, that can last for months or years. And when that happens, what I've noticed and what I noticed for myself is that sitting still, it starts to feel wrong. Not necessarily uncomfortable. Yes, it does feel uncomfortable too, but also it feels wrong. Like something is off, like you should be doing something. You're constantly looking and scanning for the next thing. Oh my goodness, am I falling behind by just sitting down? And that feeling, it's not something that, a lot of times we want to say that that's who we are. We define it as a point of our character. Like I can't sit down, like I said earlier, thinking, oh, I can't sit down, I can't rest. But really what could be happening is that your nervous system is just doing what you trained it to do, which was being alert, being on all the time, constantly doing, constantly looking. And so when your nervous system has been stuck in that alert mode for a long time, it will start to read you sitting still as an actual threat, because in survival mode, that stillness means that something was coming. Doing things, moving, that was safe, but stopping was not. So when you finally stop and you try to rest, your body, which is used to this pattern of doing, moving, thinking, all that, it doesn't know what to do. It sends up this flare. Oh my goodness, something is going on. Something's wrong. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And you might feel guilty. You might feel restless. You might feel this urge to get up and to do something productive. That is not you being bad at resting necessarily. That is your nervous system doing exactly what you have conditioned it to do. So that can mean that the guilt that you feel when you try to rest is not necessarily a signal that rest is wrong. It is actually a signal that your nervous system needs to practice learning to rest, and also learning that stopping and resting is safe. It is not a signal that something is wrong. And really, it is the state that you want to be in. Okay, so the next time that guilt shows up for you when you're trying to rest, try naming it out loud or in your head, whichever one. This is my nervous system acting up because this is what I've trained it to do. This is not a fact. The guilt is not telling you that you should get up. It is actually telling you that your system is not used to this. Like, hey, we are doing something that is not familiar. Red flag, something is wrong. That is completely different than, oh, I need to get up. And it's easier to rest the more you practice it. And what I mean by rest is rest without guilt. Okay, so the difference between collapsing because you have a flare and recovering. There are two different kinds of stopping. There's collapsing, which is honestly what happens to us a lot, which is when we push ourselves so far that we hit empty and your body then forces you to stop. And then there is actual rest, which is intentional. It is before you reach that point of no return while you still have something left. Now, they can look very similar on the outside, but inside they are completely different. And the reason why is because when you collapse, you are not necessarily recovering. You're just pausing because you are absolutely depleted. And then what do? You get up, a lot of times still depleted, and you start that cycle over again. Whereas when you're actually resting, this is intentional rest before you hit that point of depletion. This is giving your nervous system a little bit of a chance to downshift while it still has that capacity to do that. So it is the difference between, for instance, running a car until it sputters out of gas, or let's say you have a quarter of a tank left and you pull over and you refuel. That's kind of the difference there. So try to rest before you need to. Again, we've talked about this a lot lately. Before you hit that point of total and utter exhaustion, stop. Don't wait until you get to that point. And I know that feels really hard, but even, practicing, okay, I can tell that I'm reaching my limit or I'm getting close to that limit. Stop for 5 or 10 minutes of just intentional stillness early in the day or before that crashing point. That can do so much for your nervous system compared to resting for an hour after you've completely collapsed and you no longer can go any further. Okay, so what does rest actually look like for a mom who struggles to just sit and do nothing? Now, again, I want to say rest does not have to mean emptiness. So when you're a mom in a busy household, there's often times whenever just doing nothing at all is not possible. So when you are looking at, you have a depleted nervous system, your nervous system has been just completely exhausted. Rest can mean just low input. It could mean reducing the demands on your system without necessarily eliminating everything. So maybe it's not feasible for you to just go and completely be alone in the silence. But really the goal of rest is to give your nervous system a break from the output and the demand that you are putting on it. So a hot bath can do that. A show that you love, maybe in the evening, maybe that does it. A slow walk outside can do that. Sitting in the car for 10 minutes before you go inside, that can do that as well. But what does not count is anything that keeps that activity, productivity, or decision-making loop running. Answering messages while you're doing this, scrolling, planning, problem solving. Those things, you could be sitting or going on a walk while also scrolling or planning or problem solving. And while they could look like rest because, hey, I went outside and I went on a walk, they probably aren't actually restoring you because you are still using your brain to make decisions. So the question to ask is not necessarily, am I doing nothing? It is, am I reducing the demand on my system, whether that's physically, mentally, or am I doing that right now? If the answer is yes, I am reducing the demand on my system, then that counts as rest. So how can we do this? I would say find the version of rest that is available to you right now in the life that you actually have. Maybe it is a 15-minute bath. Maybe it's sitting outside alone in the morning. Maybe it is a show after your kids go to bed that you actually let yourself enjoy doing without feeling guilty or feeling like I need to get up and go do one more thing. Whatever that is, just block it out and protect that one thing. And then when that guilt shows up because you've trained your nervous system to feel guilty, remind yourself, this is not a reward that I am taking. Rest is something that my body requires and that I need to feel my best. So the guilt you feel when you try to rest is not a signal to you that you need to get up and go do something. It is actually a signal that your nervous system has been in this high stress mode for so long that stopping feels wrong, even when it really is what your body needs. So rest is not a reward that you earn after you've done enough. It is something that your body needs. And remember, collapsing is not the same as recovering. Actual rest, which is intentional before you've completely maxed yourself out, is what is going to restore your body. And rest does not mean doing nothing. It means lowering the inputs, lowering the demand, lowering the decision-making, whatever version of that is available for you in your actual life. Okay, I want to help you achieve one small win in this area. So what I want you to do is find 15 minutes today and protect them. Not for sleep, not for productivity, just for something that is low input. A bath, a show, going outside alone. Maybe it's sitting in your car in the quiet for 10 minutes if your kids are napping. I used to do that when my kids were little. Let's say they fell asleep in my vehicle and we would pull up in the driveway, and instead of taking them in right away, I would just sit there for 10 minutes just to give myself a little bit of time to regroup. Even if it's that counts. But whatever your version is, and then remember when the guilt shows up, and it might, say out loud, this is something that my body needs. If rest is feeling impossible because that guilt feels like too much, or because you just genuinely do not know where to start when it comes to supporting your body, then I would love to talk with you on a one-on-one call. You can go to ashleybraden.com/coaching because that is exactly what that Feel Better coaching call is for. Okay, and then also I want you to come over to the free Facebook community and just share with us what your version of rest looks like right now. I would love to hear what it looks like for you. Also, I think it's really helpful whenever someone else can share ideas of how they're finding rest, because a lot of times we know we need to rest, but we don't know how to do it. And hearing from someone else can help us to think of new ways that we can kind of fit that into our schedule. Okay, so I will see you guys back for Thursday's episode. We are going to close out the month of July with really one of the most popular topics that I talk about, and I'm going to come at it from a completely fresh angle. So if you've ever felt like your body was working against you, no matter what you try, you are not going to want to miss this episode. I will see you back then.
Hey friend, I hope you found today's episode helpful. If you did, would you take a minute to share it with another mom who's struggling with chronic symptoms? And leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to me to know this podcast is making a difference for you. All right, it's time for me to go tackle those snack requests, and remember that a short walk, even if the kids turn it into a race, still counts as self-care. Keep chasing those little wins. Even when it feels messy, you're making progress. The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. I'm not a doctor, and this podcast is not intended to treat or diagnose any condition. You're the expert on your body. Listen to it and reach out to a trusted provider for support.